Welcome into this edition of the Edgefield County News Podcast for this Saturday, September 27th, 2025. I'm Tony Ballman, the publisher and editor of your Edgefield County News. It was 1 year ago this morning that Edgefield County awoke to the devastation of Hurricane Helene, a massive storm that raked across the panhandle of Florida through central Georgia and slammed into western South Carolina in the early hours of Friday, September 27th, 2024. In its wake, Hurricane Helene left unprecedented devastation. Trees down, power grids destroyed, communications silenced, people without power for days and weeks. And it took a concerted effort to get this county back on its feet and to get back to some sense of normalcy in the days and weeks following Hurricane Helene. On this first anniversary of that massive storm, we wanted to look back on that fateful morning. And the man who was at that time and remains the point man for emergency response here in Edgefield County is the county's Emergency Management Agency Director, James Foster Crowder. I sat down with him earlier this week to look back on Hurricane Helene +1 and where we are 1 year later. Were you guys ready for it when Helene hit?
I think it
in
was
your estimation?
I think it was more severe than anyone expected.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I don't think that we were expecting the utility damage that we got in the county. So, it was a complete rebuild for most of the electrical in the county. Aiken Co-op called it a complete rebuild. Dominion didn't, I don't think, have to do a complete rebuild, but they had quite a lot of pole damage and all like that they had to fix as well.
Yeah, it was this area. I mean, they've talked about the track and everything else, but every time I've looked at it, I'm like, this area was basically the epicenter. Where that thing crossed from Georgia into South Carolina, it was right here. McCormick and Edgefield County took the brunt of it.
Yep. I would say that the whole entire area, and not just Edgefield, but I think the surrounding counties as well, had been lulled into kind of a sense of security because we haven't had a hurricane or anything since Hugo, really. So everybody wants to spend a lot of money and do a lot of things whenever it's fresh in their mind, but whenever you get 5, 10, even 15, 20 years down the road, everybody's kind of, at that point, they don't remember it,
Right. How did you prepare? How did the county prepare for knowing it was coming?
So typically on any type of storm front, doesn't matter whether it's rain, tornadoes, hurricane, ice, anything, I start sending out active emails to all the county. I have a list of people. It's not just county, but it includes the school districts.
Mm-hmm.
It includes everyone that you might think would probably be interested in this information. Even if they don't actively do anything with it, I still notify them of it.
Right.
So we had started that. We had a meeting. We discussed some of the things. Again, nobody really expected for it to be as severe as it was. Moving on into that night, so I stayed here. My assistant stayed here, and another volunteer stayed here, and we kind of monitored things. Then about, around 10 to midnight-ish, whenever the wind started damaging trees and all, I ended up getting in the truck, and myself and the volunteer rode around. My assistant stayed here, but we rode around and started cutting trees and clearing roads. We did that for a few hours. We come back. We took a break because we were soaking wet, kind of dried off a little bit, kind of refreshed ourselves, and then we went back out. We did that till about 5 o'clock in the morning, we all went over the radio and we agreed that it was unsafe to be out there. So we come back, change clothes and dried everything again. I can remember a call went out in Trenton for a family that was in a single wide trailer, and the trailer had collapsed.
Gosh.
And at that point, EMS couldn't get out. And so I said, well, I'll try. And so I drove down the road and just down Pine Street, and I got, I don't know, probably 200 yards down Pine Street, if that, and there was a tree blocking the road, and I tried to move it and go around it, couldn't turn back around. There was another tree that fell behind me. Wow. And just barely got around it, and I told them there's no way. I went down that way. I tried every exit that I could think of to get out of town and never could get out of town. Came back and just told them that, well, whenever this is over. So obviously about 7 o'clock in the morning was when everything passed. Daylight broke. And so with all that fresh on my mind, I ended up driving around. We couldn't get past anywhere. So I started, my main priority was cutting EMS out because I knew that we had multiple standing calls. So the easiest way that I could get to Star Road was I ended up going by the baseball fields behind National Guard Armory. And so I started going up there, and I had several other volunteers. There were some firemen who were out trying to do things at that point as well. And I remember the National Guard came up, and I was cutting with chainsaw and all like that. And they kind of laughed, and they said, the federal government's here to help. And I said, that's always a good thing to hear. But they asked, they said, what do you need us to do? And I said, man, if you can get some of that equipment y'all got and just start clearing, pushing these trees out, that'd be great. And he said, well, if you can just send me an official request, because I have a way of doing that through the state and all of that. And I said, absolutely, I'll get it in. He said, don't worry about it right now. If it'll just make it in sometime today, that'll be great. And so they started going out. So that was a massive help to have the National Guard here in Edgefield. So we kept clearing, and finally we got EMS up and going and running and got those calls behind us. But I knew from the 2014 ice storm that there would be more calls because I knew the power was out. So that was a big push of mine. I could remember back then, because I was in EMS at the time, how many people were reliant on oxygen. Yeah. And I knew that was going to be a big thing. I had talked to the state. I had told them that that was a problem that we needed to address. And nobody could ever really, come up with a great solution. There were some solutions, but never a great one. So ultimately, DHEC at the time, DPH now, had contracted with a oxygen supplier. And so they opened it up where all the counties could request oxygen tanks.
Super.
And so we could go pick oxygen tanks up and drop them off. And we dedicated an EMS person to doing that, answering phone calls and taking oxygen tanks to people and all like that. Another struggle that we suffered with, the county had just swapped over to Vive for voice over IP. And obviously with all the lines down and all like that. So my telephone has an app on it where my phone comes to my telephone, my cell phone. And I also have Starlink here. So my telephone number, the county number, was one of the only working county numbers at the time. So we got bombarded with, literally my phone rang nonstop. And so initially myself and my assistant were trying to field the calls. After the first day, the state guard sent someone here. And so we set her up, and I logged her into a laptop and logged into that program on the laptop and gave her headphones, and she started answering. We got several phones from Verizon and AT&T, and we set up a call center at the council chambers. And so we had, I want to say it was about 8 or 10 lines that people could call in. But we used, another thing was Doc had just gotten TextMyGov going, and he and I had been working on that about, it wasn't long, it was maybe 30 days prior to Helene coming.
Mm-hmm.
So that worked really well because citizens could sign up into that texting system, and we sent out, at the very beginning, we were sending out 2-3 alerts a day of notifications. Towards the end, I think we shifted to 1 or 2,
Mm-hmm.
1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. But that was a good way of getting information out to let everybody know, we're doing water and MRE handouts here, there's food here, information like that. Because a lot of the county employees cooked meals and things like that, and they were able to hand it out. We had handouts at Jet for soup and things like that as well. Overall, and I had comments from the governor, the lieutenant governor, a couple other high-ranking people who came down that they said even though Edgefield got hit the hardest, that they were amazed with how well everybody operated. And that's just not just the county, but the towns, DOT, the National Guard, everyone came together, the school district, and was helping the fire departments. Everyone came together, and I think it ultimately made it a very easy transition for the citizens.
You have a county emergency management plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
But something of that magnitude, you really don't have a playbook, do you? It has to be largely improvisational.
And it really did. At that point in time, and I kind of laughed at everybody, but at that point in time, I got about 4 hours of sleep a day. I would literally get home at about 11 o'clock at night, and I would, clean up, take a shower. We have a little generator at the house, and I would clean up, take a shower. I would then sit there on my phone. I would answer Facebook messages, emails, any type of communication somebody had sent as best I could, answer all of that. I'd go to sleep. I'd wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Then we would come back, and typically there was always something waiting on me whenever I got here. And we had people staffing this facility round the clock. Like I said, the state guard lady sat here, stayed here, in fact. We had another person from another county come in, and he stayed here. And then we had another, what the state EMD calls RIM, which is a regional manager for them.
Mm-hmm.
He came from the coast, because our RIM, this is Region 1, our RIM was over in McCormick County. So he came from the coast and stayed here as well. So there was always somebody here 24 hours a day staffing this. But I would come in, like I said, about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and start on it. And there was always something that needed to be fixed. We'd have generators go down, and we'd have to get them going, whatever the case may be. So it was a constant fix one crisis and start another crisis.
Yeah, because you everything we did for the better part of a week was just, it was more reactionary than proactive.
At least for the first week.
Yeah.
After the first week, power started getting restored in towns. And so the co-op was working. They had pushed out a little bit, so we still had some power outage and all. But once power started being restored, that was a big help. It helps everybody kind of calm down and be happy at home versus, no power. Everybody's frantic trying to, get emergency power for oxygen or whatever the case may be.
And when that first morning, you said you went out and you saw the devastation as it was. what was your instinct in terms of action plan? I mean, because being such a rural county, as large as it is and as spread out as it is, I have to imagine that the extent of the devastation wasn't known for several days.
I would say that within that day, the county had a fairly good grasp. And so one of the things that the state assists us with annually is a disaster team. And we have a fairly large base. It includes approximately 14 people who are trained every year. We have to go out and assess damage. So if you want to say of like a reasonable grasp of what needs to be and what has to be done, then yes, within that first day, I think we had a reasonable grasp.
That's pretty good.
Now, if you want to get into like the nooks and crannies of it, that probably took a week or two. So, I mean, roof damage, things like the small things that maybe weren't super apparent, like we were still figuring those things out. But to get the basic necessities of, hey, I can drive down the road, I can, I can go here and get help if I need to, things like that, then I would say the first day we kind of had a good take on that.
That's great.
Our biggest... I think our biggest struggle, and as a society, we've come so dependent on the internet for information.
Exactly.
That I think that hurt us, because we had internet, but everybody else may or may not have internet, and so getting that stuff out there. And I've really based some of our improvements moving forward with that. The town is fixing to get a message board, digital message board.
I did a story on that, yeah.
And so that was part of it. I got a grant so that the county could help pay for that. It'll be generated, so if power goes out, we can plug a generator into it, and it'll be able to display, hey, we're going to open up giving out water and MREs and things, or food is available here, or shelters over here. So I thought that was a big push. I'm hoping that we'll get at least one more, possibly on 25. And then we have been in talks with the other two towns about possibly doing something similar there as well.
Nice. I know Johnston already has a sign.
Right.
Maybe figuring out to retrofit it where it's generated and things like that.
Yep. So that's some other things that we've been looking at as far as getting the information out should something happen again.
That kind of segues to my next question, which was, a year out, what have you learned? What processes are in place? I mean, have you completely rewritten your disaster playbook?
Actually, we did rewrite it, not because of that, but because I felt like it was time to rewrite it. The state likes to see us every few years rewrite it anyway, so we did rewrite it. But honestly, no, it in itself held well. It's I think almost impossible for you to write a verbatim for every incident that might come up. But it's a good fallback to say this is the basis of what to build off of.
But I mean, in processes, have you been able to with retrospect and with the benefit of hindsight go, okay, this we can do differently, this we can do differently, and as you mentioned, we become so dependent on the internet. I would think that, at least in my mind, Helene kind of sent a clarion call for us to simplify, in a way, to kind of to think in terms of dissemination of information, dissemination of basic needs. You kind of have to, do a KISS.
Well, I think ultimately we really did like the Text My Gov. I really stayed strong on so we have 4 towers that provide cell service.
Mm-hmm.
And all 4 of those towers have AT&T and Verizon on them. So they use the same exact tower, just different antennas. And so I really harped and stayed strong on those providers about keeping those towers up.
There's another one going up too.
And there's several actually. There's one on the walking trail that's going up as well. But I really harped on them, and they did a really good job. We only lost service for a day, and that was kind of a kind of surprising thing. So I have cell boosters here that put out Verizon and AT&T service in my building. So somebody came to me and they said, "Hey, we don't have cell service in the county," and I was like, "That's weird." And it didn't register in my mind. I wouldn't have known that because those push service out. So I had no clue because I had service.
Right.
As soon as I cut that off, I was like, "Oh, we don't have cell service," and I made a phone call. So one tower got struck by lightning, and the equipment failed. So it took them about 6 hours, I think, to bring the equipment here and get it repaired. The other one ran out of diesel fuel on the generator. And so we worked with them, and they were able to get the generator fueled back up again. So that fixed that problem. But overall, the phone system stayed good. There was an issue with charging. We were concerned about people being able to charge their phones.
Yeah.
But we were able to, the shelters provided some, and we did some other things too.
I used my car.
Yeah. And a lot of people did.
I did love it. Yeah,
a lot of people
that
did.
Was the thing.
It
the
really
gas,
got to the end because of the gas.
Yeah, when the gas thing, that was the scary thing too, is driving. Okay, I got to drive down to Clarks Hill to get gas because it's the only station that works.
So we were lucky, and to the fact, so the county has its own fuel station on Star Road that they own. But we did have an issue where there was no generator backup at the time. So I had to go and wire in a generator. That was one of the first things, in fact, on that day that I did. So the county was able to provide fuel to all the emergency vehicles, so fire department, all like that. Even some that you wouldn't think about that might need it, but I was very proud of administration for allowing other people that you might not think about to be able to get fuel. And by that, I mean, nobody thinks about, we have a state and a federal prison that's here.
Yeah.
And without gas, those employees can't make it to work. So
it really became a community effort with the county. The county stepped up and really reached out to other agencies, helped other agencies to be able to do their work.
Yep.
That's pretty amazing.
So there were quite a few. Now the state has DOT has their own fuel cells, so they were able to run off of that. But there's a bunch of services that you think about, or maybe you don't think about. They're like, oh, they get gas at a gas station, and now none of the gas stations work.
Yeah.
So I was very proud of them. They stepped up a lot on that. And unfortunately, it's been like a big tug of war with FEMA to get some of that money back, but we are winning on that process too. So that's been pretty good. Ultimately, what I did learn though was that if you can at least put a transfer switch at a facility, even if you can't afford to put a generator at every facility, but if you can put a transfer switch there, then if you have to, you can bring in a generator on a trailer and hook it up. You know, it's very difficult in the moment to get an electrician out there to wire stuff in, but if you can at least have the transfer switch, then all you have to do is just plug some cables in.
Are there lessons that learned, things that were lost in Helene that a year down the road we're still trying to figure it out or still trying to make it happen?
So in terms of repairs, I think we're probably 90% done. We finished up a few here recently. The only large ones that we're working with still are, we have 6 bridges that were damaged. And so that's not that's not a case of quick things. Like whenever you want to redo a bridge, you have to get engineers involved.
Yeah, I saw the Long Cane thing that was posted.
Yep.
Was that related? That was related to Helene. Yep. So it was undermined or whatever by the flooding, or
right. So we had several that were undermined. We had several that were completely washed away. Just gone. And so now we're looking at going back with a steel modular bridge. Those are wooden bridges.
Mm-hmm.
And we're working with FEMA to get some of the money back for those bridges. But ultimately, FEMA's not even the holdup. It's just the plan of engineering and getting the permits, because whenever you do all of that, you have to deal with, DHEC with the waterways and EPA stuff and all like that as well.
When you're riding out on the highways here in Edgefield County, do you still see the scars of Helene?
Oh yeah, obviously. You see tree damage everywhere. It's fall down. So Clemson Extension is here in this office, and they deal with agriculture and forest and all like that. So our forest agent right back there, we talk about it. In fact, we talked about it some this morning. Just the damage, because in Edgefield we have a lot of agriculture for forest. Mm-hmm. People grow, trees and then plan to have them harvested and sent off to the mill.
Yeah.
So there were tons of people who lost a bunch of their product, what they were growing.
Yeah.
And they've been growing it for 20, 30 years.
Yeah. So that was a huge economic hit to those individual farmers for sure. What big picture lessons do you think Helene has taught us as a community?
I think that it probably taught us not to underestimate, because everybody tends to like I said, be lulled into a sense of it's not going to happen, it's fine. Yeah. So I think that would probably be the biggest takeaway. On the positive side, though, I think that it taught us that as a county and a community that we work very well together. I saw so many people come together and do things that weren't required of them or was outside of the normal, just volunteering.
Yeah.
That I was extremely proud of every person that I interacted with. As I brought up the Clemson Extension guy. He come in and he didn't have to. He wasn't ordered by Clemson Extension or anybody, and he came in and helped with county. He manned some of the bathhouse stations for us that we opened up and stuff like that. Came into the office, checked on me all the time. Got his tractor and helped clear roadways. And
nice.
And he's not isolated. There were tons of people who I can name off personally and people that I didn't really know personally, but I just saw when I was driving around that didn't ask any question other than, what do you need me to do? And never expected anything for it.
James Foster Crowder, the Emergency Management Agency Director for Edgefield County, talking with me about Hurricane Helene. And here we are, 1 year down the road, and another tropical system approaching South Carolina in the days to come. It doesn't look like it's going to be the monster that Hurricane Helene was, thank God. But 1 year later, we know that we are ready, better ready, more ready for anything that comes ashore here in South Carolina, thanks to the way that our county responded to Hurricane Helene 1 year ago. I'm Tony Ballman, publisher and editor of the Edgefield County News. Thank you for listening. If you'd like more information on our reporting, check out our website at edgefieldcountynews.com. We'll see you next time on the Edgefield County News Podcast.